I don't want to watch the John Oliver video essay. I want to see, here's why blaming inequality on capitalism is absurd.
Tortured for our moral insufficiency because of the existence of demonstrable inequality. And the call for equity is part of the clarion call for the people who are conducting, let's call it, the war on the West. And the proposition there is essentially Marxist, that wealth tends to accumulate in the hands of fewer and fewer people, which happens to be true. What's so faulty about that, in my estimation, isn't the claim that that inequality exists, or even the claim that there are negative aspects of that that might need to be addressed, but the notion that that is somehow unique to the social institutions and the economic institutions of the West. And I hate that most particularly because I think it underestimates the problem. You cannot blame inequality on capitalism.
No,
it's foolish.
Absolutely. I mean, let's take the other options on the table. The remaining flotsam and jetsam of the Cold War. Let's say you can say Putin's Russia. You can certainly say Cuba and a few other places. What do we reckon is the inequality of wealth in these countries between, let's say, the oligarchs and the average Russian? There was a documentary Alexander Navalny bravely made before going back to Russia and being imprisoned, and he had it released, was that Putin's palace on the Black Sea has, among other things, a vineyard attached to it, and there's a guest area, a guest room near the vineyard, and there's a guest lavatory in the guest room, the vineyard, and there's a lavatory brush there made of gold that costs the same as the average Russian makes in a year.
What's really interesting about this is, like, they fucking talk about blaming inequality on capitalism being absurd, and then they try to make the argument that Putin himself is not a capitalist. Like, he's quite literally the capitalist. What is wrong with these motherfuckers that they always point to capitalism and then say, look how wrong this is. If only these guys were capitalist or more capitalist, this would not happen. It's like, motherfucker, they're literally, that's the guy. That is the guy. There is no better representation of capitalism than the fucking billionaire oligarch rose from the ashes of a sacked and destroyed USSR at the behest of the West. Like, that was our guy. He is Mr. Capitalism.
There's just one example of inequality in Russia. We could do the same thing for Cuba. Let's look at all of the other examples. Look
North Korea?
No, use Cuba. What's up? Like, I don't understand. How are you going to jump from Vladimir Putin, a capitalist, anti-communist, openly anti-communist, capitalist oligarch, and then compare it to fucking Cuba? He's like, oh, yes, let's use it for Cuba, and then move on. Okay. Because that's how it works. In order to craft an argument when your entire audience is already fucking against Cuba and against Russia because they believe that, like, Russia and Cuba are equivalent in their, in their endeavors towards building a budding socialist organization of the economy, which is just patently and objectively untrue. You could say that for Cuba, but you certainly can't say that for for Russia. All he needs to say is Cuba and move on. And then everyone will turn around and be like, yeah, that's it. He's right. Yeah, Cuba is like this.
Look at North Korea.
Like North Korea, another great example. How are they? North Korea itself is not a fucking communist country or a socialist country for that matter. It is literally a theocratic monarchy. It is a theocratic monarchy. And even then, the reason why North Korea is the way it is not necessarily because of their form of governance. I'm sure that factors into it, certainly. But the biggest destroyer of Cuba and North Korea is the same. It's sanctions. It's the fact that they are not allowed to participate in the global marketplace. How is North Korea a theocracy? I think North Korea is a theocracy, not in the same way that it's like an established organized religion, but Jusha is like a theocracy. I think like the North Korean understanding of Jusha is no longer about self-reliance, but more so just like it's become a dogmatic, theocratic belief system that revolves around the Kim family, where the Kim family is a descendant of God. Like they're basically godlike figures. I don't like North Korea, but that's literally not true, Lamau. So I guess the democratic organization is what's creating a system where the Kim family keeps staying in power. Like, I'm not a believer in the Western media agitprop against, all the Kims fucking like, making their uncles get eaten by dogs or whatever kind of dumb bullshit that comes out all the goddamn time about North Korea. And I also regularly recognize that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea has done really decent job of uplifting itself given all of the circumstances that they're against. But ultimately, it's still not exactly a great place to live. And it is not democratic. And it is closer to a theocratic monarchy than it is to any sort of Marxist-Leninist development. Did you say the same about Cuba? Is it more democratic at the local levels? Absolutely. It's run by one party, certainly at the top, but their local elections are what creates a closer semblance to a democratic organization than anything else. And not only that, but of course, Cuba, just like every other country, has a fuckload of issues, all the way from at the top, their lack of free speech. I personally find that to be distasteful and not good. I don't like that, but I do understand why it is the way it is, because they're constantly engaging in war with the world's largest imperial power. Let them fucking destroy themselves if socialism or any kind of like socialist adjacent form of development or a form of governance is so bad. Let them fucking destroy themselves then, but they won't. No one. We will never see that for Cuba, because God forbid that they are a successful example of a country that's able to uplift itself from the never-ending colonial battle. Same with Haiti. Obviously, our impact on Haiti has been much, much, much more devastating than Cuba. And look at what's going on in Haiti.
What was wealth inequality like there? What's wealth inequality like in Angola these days? I mean, go anywhere.
I love when fucking these dickheads will point to countries like Angola or Zimbabwe without mentioning like any sort of prior historical context for why they are the way they are, or what kind of ongoing neo-colonial or imperialist efforts destroy these nations. Like, oh yeah, no, these are blossoming socialist countries. That's what happened, right?
To present this as you say, as some kind of phenomenon of Western capitalism, as though any other system around could be better.
All economic systems produce inequality. It seems to be the reflection of a deep underlying law that we don't understand that well, about how advantage tends to accrue as you accrue advantage, and disadvantage tends to accrue as you accrue disadvantage. Positive feedback loops of some sort.
Yes.
All economic systems result in inequality, and different societies have evolved different mechanisms to deal with that.
I love this tautology, this Ouroboros of an argument, okay? Oh, well, inequality is inevitable and natural, so it's always going to produce itself. I'm not even going to fucking literally make an argument as to why that is the case. I'm also certainly not going to acknowledge that the naturalistic fallacy is one that you cannot fucking ever mention when talking about the human innovation, which is predicated upon destroying any kind of like natural phenomena. What do you think, motherfucker, that like, you think skyscrapers are natural? No. Like every single thing that we have done has gone against God, okay? Has gone against and is an affront to God. You think the benzos you're taking are natural? No. Shut the fuck up. What is this argument? They're like, oh, well, you know, the hierarchies are naturally occurring phenomena. Look at the lobster. It's like, dude, yeah, well, the lobster also can't build a fucking spaceship, okay? Shut the fuck up, idiot. Like, how stupid. How fucking stupid of him to make this argument over and over again. And all these fucking dumbasses that love his shit literally turn around and go, oh yeah, he's right, actually. He is right. Inequality is natural. Yeah, exactly. It's the natural position that you're going to be a fucking bootlicking idiot for the rest of your life, you know? Yeah, you deserve to be the poor, I guess. Great.
Also produced inequality, but also produced the cessation of absolute privation, are free market systems. And China didn't manage that till they instituted free market systems. And
it was the capitalism that uplifted China. Yeah, that's right. It wasn't the influx of foreign capital being used to uplift and develop China as evenly as possible, specifically starting with like areas that they considered to be urban land to develop. I mean, that's not how, it was the capitalism. That's true. China does a lot of, I guess, things that you could consider to be state capitalist. But this notion that they are not working towards Chinese prosperity, okay, is fucking stupid. The reason why China is the way it is now, with a blossoming middle class, living in their 80s and 90s era now, while we are suffering, is because of the way that they used those funds to develop China, rather than just take those funds and collect them at the top in the same way that a capitalist country would.
People in the West are guilty about inequality, liable to rake themselves over the coals when its existence is pointed out, but it's partly because they don't understand how pernicious the problem really is, and they don't take credit for the fact that free markets have stopped people from starving. It's only 8% of people now live below the UN line for absolute poverty.
I love that. Yeah, I wonder how that happened, by the way. The eradication of extreme poverty without China is non-existent. The eradication of extreme poverty is only existent in China, not because of capitalism, but because of the influx of foreign capital being used specifically to develop China. You can't fucking talk about the eradication of poverty without mentioning China, because without China, it's way worse. Also, the metrics change throughout the time too, but it's just selfish and stupid and a bad argument overall. Like, China is in this situation where they're both like a capitalist country when it suits your argument, and it's also a communist country when it suits your argument. It's the communism that's bad. It's the capitalism that's good in China. That's the way that conservatives make this argument. Literally, he's doing it right now. He's like, oh, the eradication of poverty has been incredible. It's because, capitalism in China. If China is so good at capitalism, why doesn't America do capitalism like China? Maybe we should copy the way China does capitalism. I'm in favor of that. 100%. 48 dead billionaires over the course of the past 20 years. Chinese prosperity initiatives. I'm a fan. Straight up. Let's do it. It's called taxes, motherfucker. Let's do that. Yeah. If China is so good at capitalism, let's do Chinese capitalism here in the United States of America. Why can't we do that? Why don't we do that? Yeah, let's make billionaires engage in what is known as voluntary donations, tune of billions of dollars. They're so good at doing capitalism. Let's do it like that.
Evidence of significant fears about inequality between the Chinese elite and the average person. There is something very specific about the Western worry about inequality, which again, like the worry about slavery.
They keep implying that China somehow doesn't care about inequality while simultaneously using Chinese prosperity and its outcomes and its positive outcomes for Chinese development as somehow a capitalist invention. So I don't understand. Which one is it? Like, do the Chinese not worry about inequality, but they somehow were able to fucking overcome it because of how great and how capitalist they are? Also, what do you mean we worry about slavery? What the fuck?
Guilt and historical guilt is a product of a thing that ought to be recognized as being a good part of the machine. If the machine was so pernicious, we wouldn't care about inequality. We would simply say, as I'm afraid...
Or we'd celebrate it even more, which
Absolutely.
is a perfectly easy thing to do, which is, well, if I have more, it's because I'm better, and the evidence that I'm better is clearly that I have more. And
Yes.
What's your evidence for the contrary claim? Well, people have intrinsic worth. It's like, yeah.
Right.
Dude, I love that. He's just like, no, they don't. I mean, no. His argument is people have intrinsic worth. No, they don't. Okay, sick, dude. I mean, you're just openly saying that. That's cool. That's a cool thing. I mean, that kind of attitude justifies a lot of horrific shit, including slavery, for the record. I mean, why? Why don't the fucking idiotic, like, stem cell cucks that love Jordan Peterson not realize that he wants you to be a tech serf, okay? He wants you to be a tech peasant living in this, like, neo-feudalist dystopia. Like, he's saying you, by the very design that you're listening to him and saying that he's good and smart and justifying the system that he's trying to desperately uphold, are worthless. You're worthless. Like, he's basically saying that to your face. I'm just going to repeat it over and over again until you understand. He's saying that if you're poor, you're worthless, and that some people don't have intrinsic value.
And you go to another of the world's biggest economies, India. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's an extraordinary culture, very, very rich, a wonderful culture, and just the most extraordinary place to visit. But it also has a form of inequality which is grotesque to any Western visitor. I'm talking, of course, about the caste system, which exists to this day, which is a form of slavery as well, and which regards people, if they're born into the wrong class, as being literally untouchable.
Wait, but we have a caste system in America, and by the very nature of your defense of said caste system that we have here, whether it be the caste system that is the black and brown people that we are subjugating, okay, within the criminal justice system, or immigration policies that specifically create a caste system, a caste-like system of undesirables that are so easy to cycle in and out. We have a caste system of people who are a part of the workforce. Straight up. Just because you have a couple examples of class mobility where a poor person can make a killing through luck and hard work, but luck being the most important factor there, does not change the reality that for the large majority of people in the working class, their budget shortfall is built into their existence, and they will never be able to get out of that. They will never be able to make it out, scrape out of the intergenerational poverty that they're destined to exist in. We just don't want to call it a caste system. We want to call it, we say it's different. We're above it. By the way, this is pure Western chauvinism. White supremacist, colonialist, Western chauvinism. Difference between, for example, India, bad, orientalizing, Indians, and saying that they're bad and wrong, which, by the way, there is severe inequality in India. Modi is horrible. He's a fascist. I'm not even going to get into that. Saying that like America is somehow above it is chauvinistic. Why? I'll give you another example, one that you can better understand. Pakistan, and I believe in India as well, you have bribery, right? In some of these other countries, you have bribery. You need to bribe people to get shit done. In Western liberal democracies, we're above that. Bribery is bad. It's immoral. It's wrong. And it is bad. But what do we have? We have lobbying. We have codified bribery. We have institutionalized bribery. So now we have something different because that's legal and it's not bribery. It's something different. We have lobbying. We have super PACs. That's so much better. It's not the Orientalist system of bribery. That's for barbarians. We're civilized. That's Western chauvinism. What we are doing is the exact same shit that they're doing. We just call it something different, and we have basically codified it. So remember that when they talk about like the caste system in India, or when they talk about inequality in Eastern nations and refuse to acknowledge the inequality that is built in our capitalist formation, that is a form of Western chauvinism. It's different.
The untouchable class in India is something you're born into and you will be in for your whole life.
A black kid born in O Block that has to go through the Chicago public school system that is crippling and underfunded is not destined for a lifetime of wealth and prosperity in the same way that a white kid in Naperville only a couple miles away is. Neither of which chose their spawn point. Just because one maybe in a really, really unique circumstance with profound levels of hard work and also a fuckload of luck does not change the reality that it's functionally the same. It's just the idea of a meritocratic approach that we supposedly have is bullshit, and it's a way to justify the capitalist organization of the economy. I'm saying both are bad. I think he's saying both are good, for the record, when describing hierarchies and how natural they are.
Is that inequality? Oh, yes. Is it systemic? Hell yes. Is much being done about it? Not really.
That's the difference between me and this fucking dickhead, is that I think that both are unjustifiable, immoral, and wrong. And we as a society, we as human beings should overcome said naturally occurring phenomena. He's saying, oh, well, it's just different colors of the same spectrum and it's okay. It happens everywhere. We should keep doing it.